Welcome to Build Better Teams, the podcast for leaders who want to improve collaboration, strengthen communication, and create real alignment inside their teams. Here we explore team building strategies, leadership development, and hands-on approaches like Lego Serious Play that help teams think, build, and solve problems together. Let's get started so you can lead more effective, aligned, and engaged organizations. Hello and welcome back. I am Shannon Russell. Today, I am chatting with the founder of Spark Solutions, Lara Schroeder. She is a sports management consultant with a deep belief that well-run organizations deliver lasting impact. She works with nonprofit sport and recreation organizations that want to operate well, improve governance, and generate strategy. She is here to share her experience working in nonprofit, working in sport, and how she helps organizations and businesses succeed by implementing processes and strategies to really push forward. Let me introduce you to Lara Schroeder of Spark Solutions. Lara Schroeder, welcome to Build Better Teams. I am so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
This is so great. We are business friends. We know each other really well. And I just thought about having you on here because you not only deal with organizations and teams, you deal with staff, you deal with volunteers. So let's get into it. First, can you introduce yourself and really tell us what it is that you do and your business, Spark Solutions?
Sure. Thank you again for having me. This is very exciting. My company is called Spark Solutions. We are a consulting and facilitation company, and we work with sport organizers and leaders. And we're based in Canada. And to this point, all of our clientele has been Canadian. And in the Canadian sports system, that usually looks like volunteers, sometimes paid staff, but mostly volunteers. But we work with those volunteers and organizers to make sure that the organizational side of the sport organization or recreation organization is functioning really well, because that translates to a better participation experience for athletes, coaches, and officials. We do that through strategic planning, through governance support, training, webinars, workshops, and custom projects, because sometimes things don't fit into those boxes very neatly.
Yes. How did you get into this and start this company?
Good question. So I think I came to it very naturally because I grew up in a very small town. It was 100 people, and everyone participated to make things run. My graduating class was 14 people. I knew my whole entire life.
Wow.
Did not all participate in the sport. Things did not run. We didn't have enough for teams. My dad volunteered a lot. My mom volunteered a lot. They alternated coaching and setting things up. And so I played sport from the time I was very little. And then I went to university, and my goal had been to become a psychologist. And that was a very long journey. And then I had a few friends in sport management as a major, and I thought I probably would be pretty good at that. And then I got into it, and turns out, fish to water.
Yeah.
So I have a degree in sport management. I have a master's degree in arts, specializing in sport management. And my thesis was in governance. 3 pieces of paper to support that. And then a lot of volunteer and professional experience too.
Yes, and your whole childhood. I love that. I had no idea about that aspect of your upbringing. And I knew your town was small, but I didn't realize that really, like you said, it takes everyone to come together. And now you can help other teams and organizations do the same. That's
Yeah, that's right. I think that I was on hockey skates like when I was 3. I barely learned to walk, and I was skating because my dad maintained the rink. We had an ice rink with natural ice. He was the one that was flooding the ice. And then he also put on the ball tournaments, the baseball tournaments. And if there were home runs or foul balls, you could go run after them. And if you brought the ball back, you got a quarter. And then later it was more $1. So yeah, that was like going to chase after balls every year was some of my first volunteer, I guess, as I reflect on it.
I love that. All right, so let's dive in. So my first question for you is really about your staff and volunteers. What do you think separates organizations that run really well from the ones that consistently feel that overwhelm and disorganization?
I don't think that the sport experience or the sport organization experience or the volunteer experience is all that different from the professional workplace experience. In the sphere that I work in, I think It's the processes that connect people to the structure. So you might have policies, you might have framework, and then you have the people who are executing. But what sets those people apart and the organizations apart who work really well are the ones that have the processes that are intentionally developed and have the ability to flux and change. A process might be working, but something has changed with the people who are coming to work in your organization or volunteer. That system might not be bad. It might not be working anymore. And if you have the ability to adjust, then that's much better than being sedimented. The people who are stuck and really entrenched in process or in the way things should be, those are the ones that typically aren't working as well. And the people who don't have process or don't have structure or don't have the people, I suppose, are the ones that are really overwhelmed and disconnected. I like to convey to my clients, you have capable individuals. I'm not going to say that you don't. All these people are capable, but they also have very full lives because they're here to volunteer. And we want to reduce the load that they have to do in this volunteer experience and just make it as functional as possible. Those that do that, I think, are much better than those who don't.
Do you find that a lot of people who come to you find that they just are kind of running with it? They don't have these systems in place and they need you to help them get it in place so that they can keep volunteers coming and keep them coming back?
Yes, I think it's often two things. The first is things got away from them and they never have had a process or they've never had a policy and they've just been holding it together with sheer will for so long. And finally they get to a point where we cannot do this any longer. Or the flip side is they do have process, but again, they've been running from season to season, week to week, and they've just got to the point where they haven't looked at anything and it's very outdated. So it's dragging behind them as this dead weight that they don't have, or that they know they need to update their bylaws, but they haven't done it. Now that's hanging over them, and then it's the extra work to go do it. So a lot of people come to me because of those things, or however reason why they say people don't know their role here, and that's causing a lot of friction. Again, that could be one of the two things. You haven't defined your roles or your roles are outdated.
Okay. And a lot of these organizations that you work with are very few people on the payroll.
Oh,
'Cause
yes.
yeah. So talk to me about the behind the scenes and how they get their funding. A lot of that is through governance as well, right?
Yeah. In sport in Canada, there's basically three levels. And I'm sure in the United States it's the same. There's community sport happening at the local level. Sometimes that's nonprofit. Sometimes that's for profit. Sometimes that's government driven, municipal. In the cases where those are nonprofits, or sometimes for smaller operating clubs, it's all volunteers and their operational boards. Those people are rolling up their sleeves and getting it done. And if they have staff, and I would say this is in smaller centers, they might have one, they might have an administrator, or they might have a head coach, but they don't have a ton of people. And then you would see at the state level, there's also in Canada, it's the provincial level. Those organizations are various sizes. So they might have a half-time staff person, again with a board, or they might have upwards of 15 staff. And then the complexity changes as well. At the national level, again, it just gets larger. They're overlooking sport at a national full oversight level, but they most likely have fully paid staff. Some staff teams are upwards of 100 or north of 100 people, but there also are some very small sports that are just a volunteer staff team. I think those are fewer and far between than they have been, but yeah, some are working with 2 to 3 to 4 staff. So the board is overseeing what that looks like. They're managing the direction. They're managing the fiduciary responsibilities. They should be setting the direction for the staff. And then the staff are going to operate and execute that. But if we don't have that sophistication, then yeah, the people are rolling up their sleeves and they're getting it done. They're doing the things themselves.
I can see in a corporate setting, which you're familiar with as well, obviously everyone is paid. And so everyone
Mhm.
is there. They must attend the meetings. They must be involved, sharing their ideas. But you're dealing with very different organizations. If you
Mhm.
don't have those systems, you don't have that communication, you're just doing it with the 1 to 2 people that actually have to be there. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I would imagine it's the same in the US, but in Canada, the volunteering trends have been changing over the generations. baby boomers, Gen Xers, maybe a little less than baby boomers. Baby boomers, by and large, everyone was volunteering. People are volunteering less and less, but those who are volunteering a lot, and chances are they're volunteering in multiple places. So they're very busy people. And often I hear we can't get volunteers. And so I'm like, okay, that on the face could be true. But then if we dig a little deeper, I'd had this conversation with a client once. I was like, okay, in this case, we were talking about a soccer club and they were talking about we can't get coaches. And I was like, all right, how do you train the coaches? How do you search for the coaches? Once they get here, how do you orient them? Do you give them a shirt? Do you give them anything as thanks for being here? Do you give them the equipment they need? Or do they have to figure that all out once they get here? And they're like, they have to figure it all out. Okay. So does that really inspire you to want to join if once you get here, you have to do all the problem solving? Or could you put some very basic stuff together? A one-pager of here's who you call if you have a question or a challenge. Here's where the first aid kit is. Here's what our weather policy is. If you want to take a coaching course, where can you do that? And when does that typically happen? Some really basic things. And they were like, so you're saying as a volunteer, I need to manage other volunteers? And I said, yeah, if you want to increase your odds of getting volunteers, building some of the framework around that, even though you are a volunteer yourself, yes, it will help you to get other volunteers. And I think that can be tough to hear, but if you do put in that process, it does help things around you to become easier. If you're able to tell people, this is the time frame, this is the nights, this is how long it goes, here's what you can expect to do, people are going to say yes to that a lot more than not knowing any of that.
The idea of doing it once and then it's done. Yeah, it's a little bit of extra work, but it'll save you that time and stress down the road.
Exactly. And then maybe every 2 years or maybe once a year, you could do less though. You're planning to check in on that so that it doesn't become dated and out of date. And then again, it's just things you can't refer to because we haven't looked at it in 5 years and it's no longer relevant.
And so now you've worked with these organizations, you've dealt with boards, you've dealt with leadership teams, program leaders. Where do you usually see that communication breakdown happen?
That's a super good question. And so behind the scenes, look, everybody, Shannon sent me some of these questions yesterday and I was reflecting on them. And in the sports setting or in the recreation setting, particularly, there's a user group in there that you didn't include. It's the end user. It's the participant themselves. You have to take care of the people inside of your organization, but you have to communicate with those who are experiencing your organization as well. So being transparent and communicating in an ongoing and consistent manner is very helpful, whether you're internal or external to the organization. You want to make sure that they're all informed. I myself am a big believer in transparency, giving people all of the information and letting them come to their own conclusion. I've always operated that way best. I think a second area that groups that I work with really struggle with is the concept of consultation. Let's imagine a swim club. So you have a lot of swimmers. They're trying to be competitive. They're trying to get better. And you're going to make a change to a program, for instance, that would impact perhaps when they swim or how they qualify for competitions. In a lot of groups, people think because I pay money to be here and I've registered, I get a say in what goes on here. So some groups think that they're consulting and others think, I'm giving you my opinion. Now you need to execute around that opinion. And that is not what consultation is. Consultation is listening. It's hearing and reflecting on the feedback and taking it in. And then I think where the breakdown is, number one, that assumption that you're going to do what I said because of what I said.
Yes.
But then number two is, it doesn't look like anything happened because no one told me what happened as a result. So I think there's a big breakdown in that back end process. We have to tell people we're going to listen. We're going to consider what you say, but we're not necessarily going to do something about it because we have to look at the whole picture. But we're going to tell you why we made this decision. And if we can't do what you said, why we can't do that. At the end of that, if you can walk through that process, people aren't necessarily going to agree with you, but they're at least going to be able to see your math And I think that helps to manage some of the dynamics that come out of that. Other than if you didn't do that, people just look like you didn't listen, you didn't do what I said, and now I'm mad. So those are where I see a lot of communication breakdowns with the people I work with.
I bet. And then it goes back to it's the one paid director or the one person. It's like, how do we do all of the things? But by
Mhm.
communicating, I think, like you were saying, you make the participants happy, you make the volunteers happy, and it just makes a more well rounded organization that's going to succeed and reach their goals.
Right. You don't have to communicate ad nauseum, but if you can build some consistency into how you do it or how often you do it, that helps as well.
I love that you help organizations really set up these processes and these communication strategies so that they can be successful.
The groups that I work with are so varying in size. And because they're volunteer, people love to say, we're informal here, we're flexible, we're casual. And I think that's true. And I'm not going to take that away from anyone. But I think there is some, I hesitate to say professionalism, but some professionalism or level of sophistication that you can bring to the size that you are and the scope of capacity that you work in. So, in some cases, yes, you're a very small group. You only have 40 participants or whatever. You don't need a full book of policy, but you probably should have at least a paragraph or a one page of a policy. And that goes for larger as well. You can be a fully humongous autonomous organization. You still need to operate well in the scope that you have.
I want to touch upon something that you and I have in common, and that is
Mhm.
Lego Serious Play. We were both certified, and we were both lucky enough to facilitate a mastermind group this past fall that was so much fun in Canada. What drew you to getting certified, and how have you seen that methodology of team building incorporate into the work that you do and really benefit it?
So my mom saw an ad for Lego Serious Play training, I guess, in a magazine, I think, when she was traveling. And she just sent me a picture of it. It was like, you should check this out. So I did. And I think what draws me in is it's tactile like sport
Yeah.
and there's movement to it. You're actively moving your hands as you're putting it together. I also think that if we talk about business for a second, we're talking about professionalism and there's some sort of seriousness to that, but it doesn't have to be totally serious. There can be some play, some interrelation, some humor, some levity. Lego Serious Play brings that to places that we could use it a little bit more. The other thing that really drew me in is when we build the model, so each person would build a model. When that gets built, I infuse my ideas into the model. It's now this tangible 3D thing that can sit on the table. Once it's on the table, it's no longer mine, it's the group's. And that really helps to sever the tie between the person and their idea. So, where previously there might have been some critique and that was interpreted personally as my idea is bad, once it's onto the table, it's no longer your idea. So it's a lot easier to question or critique something in a way that might really move things forward constructively. I love that. The last thing that I love about Lego Serious Play is just seeing the visual model can help people to remember the concepts so much more. For instance, when I'm facilitating with groups, I often hold up a tree and I like to say, like, this tree is interdependentness. The roots are what connect me to you, and we put down roots and we make connections, and then we draw on those connections when we need them. But then the height, the limbs out into the world, that's mine. And that's me showing my creativity and originality and flexing when I need to. So the ability for someone to remember, oh, that's interdependentness because it was a tree and they said this means this. I love that. Some of the things that I've done in groups still stick with me, and those have been multiple years. But if you would have just said, oh, interdependentness is really important to me, I wouldn't be able to tell you that.
Difference between someone speaking at you or giving a presentation, or you actually building and feeling it and sharing it together. It is so much like sport because it is something away from screens and technology, and it's that human to human interaction that is so
Mhm.
cool.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can use it so many different ways.
Yeah, it really is something that I think that often gets dismissed as a fun activity and play, and you get the eye rolls when you walk into meetings to facilitate. It's something that can really strengthen that strategy and communication. Have you used this method in any of the organizations that you work with more recently?
Not as recently, and I need to bring it back. I think when you think of team building, a lot of people will roll their eyes because
Yeah.
they're imagining trust fall, and there's merit to that. But I think you use Lego Serious Play in a team building way a lot more intentionally.
Yeah.
It's the modality to use to move people along through a process. And because it's fun, I think there is a way to build culture, to build communication, to build things, but you have to do it strategically. You can't just be like, "Okay, here's some Lego and we're just gonna play." Use it in as a functional way, really is what I think sets it apart.
Yes, there's more of an action plan afterwards, I think.
And throughout,
And
yes.
throughout, absolutely. Yeah. You can walk away with an actual plan rather than just something that's up in the air and it's just this ideal idea that may or may not see follow through afterward.
I do think that serves a purpose. Group goes to do a smash room or a group does an escape room. There is some purpose to that, but
Yeah.
I think it's more inherently fun, whereas there's just other types of team building that actually get you someplace.
Yes. You can use it for actual strategic planning. And
Yes.
yeah. Now, for leaders who are listening right now and are trying to improve their organization or the team culture or employee or volunteer engagement, what tips do you have for them?
I think the first place to start is to reflect on what you think is missing or what the opportunity is if you're not preferential to the negative slant of that. Often groups come to me and they're like, "We need this." And then I think I'm quite good at just reserving judgment. There's really no judgment or no shame in my work practice. So you can come and tell me anything, and I'll be like, "Okay, but is that actually what you need? Because from how I am hearing this, I don't think so." So I think the first place to start is to really decide what it is you're looking for and not to just jump to the conclusion, first of all, but to really dig into what do you think's at play here?
Yeah.
I think the second thing is if you're going to engage in team building or working to improve your organization, you have to decide as a leader, am I the best person to lead that? Sometimes there's power dynamics at play from the leader to, I don't want to say subordinate, but I guess the team
Yeah.
that you might not even be aware is there. So if you have any suspicion that there could be some power dynamic that might continue if you are the leader of the activity or the process, then it shouldn't be you. And you should consider bringing in an external facilitator to help you through that because you might not be able to see those things until you're out of the space. And I think passing the baton over to the facilitator would help get you further than you might do otherwise. So I think those are the two best places to start is decide what do you think you want to get out of it. And number two, should you be the one to lead it or not?
All organizations aren't going to be the same. All teams don't have
No,
that same dynamic. So it's a very good point. You don't, as a leader, always have to be the one who's in the mix. It's okay to step back, okay to have other people lead things, and you be that person that they can come to get your opinion or to get your vision, but you don't have to be in the mix all the time and just
that's right.
everything.
And as a facilitator, if you're going to pick a facilitator, you really want to talk to them one or more than once, perhaps, to
Mhm.
find out what their style is. I really pride myself on being a facilitator that incorporates all perspectives, even the perspectives you don't hear often, the people who don't put up their hands first, the people who feel like they're getting talked over. I really pride myself on working to ensure that every voice is heard in an equitable way And some facilitators, that's really not a priority for them. So
Yeah.
depending what your group needs, you should choose accordingly, I think.
Very good advice. Yes, absolutely. Now, I have a question just because you focus so much on sports and recreation. I'm just curious, what lessons do you think workplace teams, rec teams can learn from successful athletic groups and clubs?
Chances are you are already learning from someone in your workplace. They're already there. There's a statistic out there that 94% of women in the C suite of companies played competitive sports growing up. So almost everyone.
Wow.
And I couldn't find any results on men, but I'm sure the numbers are not dissimilar. So that means those people are there and they're bringing those experiences to the office already. So I think it would be an interesting exercise to ask your group, did you play competitive sports or recreational sports, scouts or brownies or some other type of group? They all would bring some skills. So I think there's a lot to learn. Successful athletes and teams, they understand consistency in training and preparation. They bring excellence to those preparations. So I think that translates directly. They persevere in loss, in injury, in adversity, in not being selected for teams or competitions and having to work through that. They're able to perform well under pressure and be able to perform on demand, which I think is really quite interesting. The concept that we are prepared enough to do our best any single day is really an interesting concept that I think that we could learn. There's communication, particularly if you're in a team scenario.
Collaboration. Yeah.
Also, knowing how to celebrate your successes is really important. Those are just some of the high points, but there's so many things to learn. I've worked on some teams where we just finished the thing and moved on and never celebrated. And we were a sport organization. We could have done a lot better with that.
Oh, such good correlations. And so, as we wrap up, Lara, what does building a better team personally mean to you?
I reflected on this question and reflected. Do you ask everybody this question?
Yes, is my closer.
I really struggle to find what building a better team looks like. So I think a team that I would want to be on, like the ultimate in team, is one that's diverse, one that's adaptable, responsive. There's a nice culture so that it's enjoyable. It's inclusive to varied experiences, supportive. So if I think about the things that I'd want in a team, then I think building a better team is going towards those things, whatever that looks like. I'm not sure that's a great answer for your question, but that's where I ended up with.
It is. It is because I think anyone listening can say, well, I have this, but I might be missing this part. That's what is important to look at when you are creating that team culture from the top of what you want. And everything you listed are what we should strive for. I think anyone
Mhm.
who's a team leader.
And again, just to go back to what I said at the beginning
Yeah.
about intention, if you're not intentionally building something, you are intentionally not building something. It's what we're not doing as much as what we are doing. And so I think my parting thoughts are when we're working to build a better team, to ask each other to decide as a group, what do we want this team to be? And then also, what do we want this team to not be? And if we can decide what that looks like, then we know how to build towards that and away from the other thing. Because if we're not building, then we're allowing ourselves to just float off into whatever that turns out to be.
I love that. I love it. For not building, we are actively not building. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
so well said. Oh, Lara, you have so much wisdom to help teams, sport or not. Tell us where listeners can connect with you and learn more about you and Spark Solutions.
You can find me on my website, which is www.sparkplay.ca, Canadian website. You can find me on LinkedIn at Lara Schroeder, and I'm sure Shannon can put that in the note. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, sorry, Instagram, but I'm not overly active there. I lurk. That's at SparkPlay 306. So any one of those places you will find me.
And you're also a Lego Serious Play facilitator. So there's that as well. And Lara, I love you. I thank you for being here and for all that you've shared. I know it's so helpful. to hear this side of it, maybe the non-corporate side. There's so many similarities, and you really helped everyone listen and figure out what they could use on both sides.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been really fun to chat. I love talking about sport groups. Everyone commonly thinks that nonprofits are completely different to businesses, but I think there's things to be learned on both sides that would strengthen how we work and play and volunteer and work together all around. So thank you so much.
Thank you.